Dr. Ana Sandoval, Chair, Chicano and Latino Studies, Cal State Long Beach.
Chicano theater as a whole played an important role in building a political consciousness, and indeed in politicizing a generation. These more than 100 theater groups formed during the Chicano movement brought light to the many communities, to the many problems that their communities were facing. Many of those over 100 groups faded away in time. Many still exist and have taken different forms. Living in Southern California, we certainly have access to many of these different organizations. Of course, with the changing demographics of the Chicano, the Latino community, we have seen more pan-Latino theater organizations come up. We've seen groups such as Culture Clash who are looking not just at Chicano realities, but multicultural realities. So we've certainly seen a wonderful, collaboration with various communities, and we've seen how different theater groups have changed according to the times, but they're still keeping those original intentions of Chicano theater, which was to really educate, politicize the community. In this current political climate,
Pause.
and that's all I'm going to say, it is important now, more than ever, that Chicano theater remain committed to its roots in educating, politicizing, and calling audiences to action.
Yeah.
Established theater companies have expanded, new theater companies are emerging, demographics have dramatically changed, and developing artistic communities have begun to lend their own sensibilities to their productions. The audience for Chicano and Latino theater has also expanded from early days, as is evidenced from more mainstream productions in mainstream venues. What has not changed is the commitment to documenting our stories and owning our own narratives. The inspiration of Chicano theater and its roots have certainly expanded to include the changing demographics of the Latino community and beyond. Chicano and Latino playwrights continue to document their own stories and own their own narratives. The work of Chicano and Latino playwrights and performers continues to educate, explore, and expand. They embrace our voices and the voices of those people with whom we inhabit this world. Their work is a gift, an invitation to learn about our rich and diverse cultures. Culture Clash is certainly one of the more prominent groups that have drawn on our past traditions of Chicano theater while developing new theatrical forms, and we are privileged this evening to hear from them about their historical influences, their multicultural artistic vision, and their perspectives on contemporary comedy and satire.
Richard Montoya, Culture Clash.
So with Luis Valdez and Zoot Suit being center stage and set to take the stage in February and probably running for a long time, it feels as though the city's about to ignite again. And for people like us who have, in a sense, paid the price of staying the course of Chicano theater, even though we've taken sojourns this way and that way, and we visit Aristophanes and have this wonderful experience at Long Beach Opera, and all indications are that the revolution of our opera is going is incredible and exciting. Talking to Susana Guzman at Gordon's Memorial, and that there's all these operas exploding, is a great New Yorker article, and I believe LBO is mentioned in the article of the revolution of opera in Southern California specifically, you know. Luis spoke eloquently about our role on the West Coast and really informing the rest of the country in New York and Broadway, making room for us. But it began to occur to me that what was really happening with the work of Culture Clash, the late 80s, early 90s were satire, high comedy. Then we got into a mode of stark realism. And by the time we get to Water and Power, it's really a laid bare and stripped down, hard look at ourselves in the mirror and where were we as Chicanos really. Our politicians were being indicted, our cops were corrupt, the church was being sued. The only person you could trust was a punk rocker from Orange County. You could trust a cholo in a wheelchair because he was going to be straight with you. You could trust Father Boyle, but every archdiocese in the country was being sued, and every politician we knew was on their way to prison or court or something. And so something was upside down, something was not right. And what was happening was that if we were doing our work right, we were rattling the colonial ghosts of the continent, and it was a violent world on the borders. It was a violent world on the mean streets of San Francisco, where gay and lesbian workers were trying to save people who had contracted AIDS. The safe houses of ACT UP San Francisco had something in common with the safe houses on the border. There was a sense of danger and urgency, and that the twin component was that we were finding grace in a violent world and somehow sharing that with our audience, so that El Pachuco could be a graceful character. A homeboy or a homegirl on the street could be an elegant character. The poetry, the street poetry, could share the elegance of the opera. And it felt quite natural. It felt that we were beginning to unlock a language, a rhythm that was steeped in caló, a mixture of Spanish and English. And it also had its iambic pentameter to it. My father, being a poet, Jose Montoya, since past, him and Luis Valdez worked closely on the original Pachuco elegies. And the Pachuco was a mythic sort of character, and we told Luis last night that Hamilton's great, and we love the hip-hop theater, but for us, our founding father really is the Pachuco. It was the moment Mexicans became Chicanos, somewhere around El Paso, and crossed over into the border of El Chuco, and we went from being Mexicans to Chicano, and chastised on one side of the border for being pochos, not Mexican enough, and just not purely embraced on the American side. So we're still wrestling with these wonderful things, and what's so great about interfacing with Andreas and Oregon Shakespeare Festival and the Greek Villa and Aristophanes is you know, what's classic is new, which is classic again. And Luis said it last night, you know, they first did Zoot Suit in '79. We're right back at '79 again, but it's different. And so more collaborations with African American writers, more collaborations with opera, more collaborations with gay and lesbian. You know, our books were named in the complaint in the Arizona schools, were named in the complaint that made its way all the way up to the circuit, the federal courts, of wiping out ethnic studies in Tucson, Arizona. An idiot of a school superintendent who later became the attorney general of that was wiping out ethnic studies, which meant black studies, which meant queer studies. So, you know, these are very, very serious times, very, very precarious times. And so collaborating and hooking up with the likes of the folks in this room and being in North Long Beach, essential, you know, so beautiful, and really excited about what the future is going to bring us, and we're energized, and we're not just an oldies act of Culture Clash. Being together 33 years, we realized as brothers that we stayed together longer than all our families had stayed together. How many marriages and everything. And I think that that's kind of what we do as actors and singers. You know, we create a tribe, and we're brothers, you know, with all the love and all the complications and Herbert's many wives. We've seen him through. Such a handsome man. And with that, I will turn it over to Herberto. But Dr. Sandoval, thank you for your text, your words. It's alive, it's living, it's truth, it's justice. We have to continue to navigate from the streets and the border towns to academia. It's important that we be able to sit here and share the table with you as well, Dr. Sandoval. I'm now going to introduce Minister of Propaganda of Culture Clash. Herberto, un aplauso, por favor.
Herbert Sigüenza.
When times get bad in America, the classics resonate. You know, the classics always are with us in our collective culture. And so when the classics always come up, you know, the adaptation. I want to segue into adaptation. In 2014, I adapted a Henry IV Part 1 into El Henry, and it worked beautifully because we were talking about what you were talking about, the Caló and the Shakespeare blended so well, so elegantly, you know. And I got, you know, and I placed it in, and I got crazy like you guys. I placed it in the future, you know. Post Ringo, California. They all, you know, they left. You know, they went to East Little Rockies, you know, and that really worked out. So the classics to me are always present, and this will be now our fourth classic that we adapt because Aristophanes, we and Aristophanes have a big deal in common. Yeah.
Ric Salinas.
Thank you. Yeah, you really laid it down, Dr. Sandoval, that history, and we are just a product of it. When we were watching Luis Valdez do his actos, you know, it's very Brechtian style, very limited in material. So when you see a Culture Clash show, it's just the three of us. It's the three of us with lights, and we create the stage. And last night, Luis Valdez was talking about the dominion of space. The dominion of space. How we can fill a space with our writing, our talent, acting, but the physicality of it. And what we took from the Teatro Movimiento and theater was watching these masters do basic theater for a cause. I mean, he was doing it for Cesar Chavez. He was doing it for the farm workers in the valley that, you know, had pesticides and no restrooms, you know, hard work, babies there. And so when he did it through theater, it's a message. It was a way to tell an audience, you know, what's going on. And I think Culture Clash has always done that. We've been able to always talk about racism, homophobia, sexism, everything, and we do it through satire. So satire is a tricky kind of style of comedy. And as we went on and wrote more plays, you know, we got a little bit more serious, and we got to travel the country doing our style of theater in major theater companies. And this is just three guys who really never went to school to study theater. We did it day by day, building brick by brick in our own voice. So when you see a Culture Clash show, it does have its style, and I appreciate that you've caught a lot of our shows here. And we were
28 years.
Yeah.
First ever stuff, and you said it's 28 years.
28 years ago, and see, we started 33 years ago, but we were only like 10 years old, right?
Me too.
But our style has always been that we look at something, and every day we write, we read the papers. We're just informed, so that when we do deliver a product, a play, we've done our homework. We always go to the libraries first. Ironically, we're here. We go to the library and we find out what's going on. We lay a real solid historical backbone to whatever story we do, and then we add on our flavor. And so when we did Peace and we done The Birds at the Getty Villa, adapting Aristophanes, who invented comedy 2,500 years ago. And, you know, and he was we loved him. As soon as we read a lot of his stuff, it was the same thing we're doing. So I believe Andrea saw us in one of the plays, and I've been keeping in touch with him, and we know that he's been doing some fantastic productions of opera, from Fallujah to even we're working with Guillermo Gomez Peña, like a while ago, who was one of our friends and a performance artist. So that when he approached us with this idea of doing Henry Purcell, who we had to look up, right, in 1600.
Off to the library.
Yeah, off to the library. And Shakespeare, of course. But it was just a bold move by the Long Beach Opera to get a hold of us. And, you know.
Why?
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to hand it over to him. So that's why I'm kind of leading up to that, Herbert, you know. But anyway, it was just a great that, you know, we finally talked and well, let's do it. Let's find out. And we'll talk more about that process and why we set it where we did. But a lot of it is this Mr. Director, his crazy genius, you know, was able to collaborate with us, and it was fairly easy. And in the sense that we knew what we were doing, where we wanted to go with it. And the opera, we've never, you know, written an opera, but in a way, every scene that we did are like the actos, going back to teatros. Like in between the singing, we did actos, you know, which are the scenes that we learned from Luis Valdez in El Teatro Campesino. These are scenes, informative scenes. It's more of a sex farce, and it's set in Vegas, but it still has a very, very culture clash stamp to it.